Good morning, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Building Quality Loan Applications. This is Stephanie Kenner, Head of the Learning and Development team, and in a moment we'll be joined by Glenn Darcy, who is our in-house broker mentor. So today's topic is building quality loan applications, and today's session will go for 1 hour. The content part of it will be around 45 minutes or so. I'd encourage any of you as we go to put any comments or questions in the Q&A section, and we'll either cover these as we go or address them at the very end. So this topic, and we always get a lot of brokers attending this particular webinar, and that is for a number of reasons. Building quality loan applications in regards to creating better outcomes. So putting together a good package ensures that it's a loan that's easy to assess by the bank. It means that you minimise the need for requests for more information or declinals. So the process overall is a lot smoother. Usually that will save you time, and it will present you in a more professional light to the customer as well, because you'll be seen to know exactly how to manage the application and anticipate what the lender's needing. So there really is a lot of wins in getting it right the first time, both from the lender's point of view and also from the customer relationship point of view. Today we'll also at the end touch on lightly the compliance part of this, because compliance and file auditing, those guidelines are becoming more stringent, and so there's even more compelling reasons to make sure that the loan applications are of high quality. So joining me today is Glenn Darcy. He's our in-house broker mentor. He's been in the industry 20 plus years. Self-employed for most of those years with his own broking company, and a varied experience with a lot of different clients, different types of loans and scenarios. And he's been with us now for about a year and a half, and he's mentoring 18 brokers at the moment at various stages of their career. So I'm really glad that he's been able to free up some time today to join us. Thanks, Glenn, and welcome.
Thanks, Steph. Great to be here. Welcome to everyone who's logged on. I'm having a look through the names, and there are some familiar names there, but there's also some new names. So for those of you who are listening to us for the first time, it's great to have you here, and hopefully we can help make your jobs, your roles and your careers a little bit easier to handle on a day-by-day basis.
Perfect. So let's have a look at the agenda, Glenn, and what we're going to be covering today. So we're going to talk about how to handle the customer correctly, how to build the expectations, and a lot of this is from the initial interview to make sure that we've let them know exactly what's going to be required, particularly for those customers that are using a broker for the very first time. We're going to look at what defines a quality loan application from the lender's point of view, particularly the importance and the implications, the importance of getting it right and the implications of not getting it right, and the problems that can cause for everyone involved. And we'll look at the bigger picture and all of the benefits. So over to you, Glenn.
Thanks, Steph. Okay, so the first question there that you can see is what is a quality loan application? Now, you talk to a number of brokers and they'll all have a slightly different opinion. And generally, they're right. But let's talk about that just initially. So a quality loan application, really simply, is a loan application that is fully completed with every box ticked and all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, and all the relevant documentation that particular lender is looking for that helps the loan go through in the most expedient fashion. If we can build a file, and we'll talk about how the banks review it too as we move through, but if we can build a file quickly, efficiently, with everything in there, then obviously that would normally allow for the fact then that the loan should pass through the banking sector, the system, fairly quickly and efficiently as well. Now, we all know that isn't always the case, but generally speaking, from that point of view, if the file is not, if there's nothing being asked for extra from the lender, then of course it will move more smoothly through. So when we look at a quality loan application, first thing we want to do is obviously make sure that all the documents that are required from the lender are included. I mean, you may think that goes without saying, but believe me, from the position I sit in, we see lots and lots of loan applications that aren't fully complete and then create delay down the track. And we want to try and avoid that. So as an example, let's just say that every lender has a slightly different spin on what they want. Now, those of you who have been around a while will know that. So each lender may ask for something just a little bit different. Now, as an example, in the case of, say, a refinance, most lenders only want to see the last 3 to 6 month statements of only the debts being refinanced. But other lenders, and there's a couple in particular, want to see the last 3 to 6 month statements on all debts, all of them, whether they're being included in the refinance or not. Now, guys, it's your role to understand that and know that the lender you're dealing with know what they want, just so it doesn't create delay for your customers down the track. This is all about helping you build a solid reputation for yourselves within the lending community, but it's most importantly, it's about looking after your customers to allow the file to move through as quickly as possible. So it settles when it's supposed to settle, you get paid when you're supposed to get paid. That's really important stuff. So what we want to do is make sure that the application, and this may sound silly to some of you, but again, you'd be surprised how often this is not done, that all the boxes are ticked, all the details are correct. So, common things that we see here is that some tick boxes are not actually ticked. Some applications ask, let's say it's a 3-year fixed rate, and you just don't tick that box. Even if you've done a split loan, 50% variable, 50% fixed, you may have filled out the fixed section, but you've not ticked the right boxes. Well, then that just creates confusion within the assessor or with the assessor who's assessing it. And again, that means maybe that the wrong product is selected by the lender when they input it into their system, or they may just call you, hopefully just call you quickly and go, hey, listen, can you check that out for us? What are you actually looking for? That's the perfect scenario, but sometimes they'll just throw the whole file back at you and go, it's not right, do it again. So we just need to make sure that everything is done. It just means you've got to spend a little bit more time and have a really good attention to detail. Now, once you've done all that, then I think it's very, very important that you just spend a little bit of time and review the application one final time before sending it out. One great example, a broker I was chatting with recently, and Steph, you may have done this in the past, I know I did, was that they wait until the next morning. They'll get it to lodgement stage. They'll actually be ready to hit the submit button, say that evening, if they picked up the loan that night. But fresh eyes in the morning allows them to pick up things that they may not have seen with, say, tired eyes the night before. And many that I've spoken, I've said, I did miss that, or I did miss that, or I did miss that. And then in the morning they go, yep, cool, tick that box, fill in an extra line or two of something they needed to fill out. Fresh eyes, send it, bang, and off it goes, and it gets done quickly. So the attention to detail will certainly help you get any loan application turned around in a more expedient fashion. So spend those few extra minutes. Just they're minutes, guys. Then we're not asking you to spend hours doing it, so that there's no hassle coming down the line. The bank won't throw the loan application back at you, or they won't ask you for more information that creates further delay, and we'll talk about that in a second. So if you can do that now, it'll save you all kinds of time as we move forward later on. So Steph, you would have seen that in the past?
Rushing applications?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, because applications do vary lender to lender, sometimes the format of things changes a little bit.
Yep.
You've got boxes that require ticking in different positions.
Yep.
So it is one that's pretty easy to miss, and then depending on the lender, you know, it can go back to the end of the queue.
It can.
For some really small reasons.
And that's what we're going to talk about now. So the importance of getting it right. So approvals themselves can be delayed. Now, that's always important no matter who you are. So each time the lender comes back asking for more info, it can and does create a delay, 2 or 3 day delay in some cases. Sometimes you'll send the information in and they'll have a 2-day turnaround time on it. So even if you think that they're sitting waiting for that email, one page, one extra pay slip, whatever it might be, that you send in straight away, then they may not pick it up for a couple of days. Now that's not the case with every lender, but in a lot of cases that is how it works. So automatically you've created a 2 or 3 day delay just because either you weren't able to collect what you needed to collect from the client, or you forgot to put it in, or the lender have asked, you know, for something else. So if you can just make sure you do that and have everything ready right up front, then you can just make sure that the lender will then be able to pick up the file, they'll work on it quickly, and there'll be no further delays. Now this can lead then, to settlement delays. This is obviously the really big whammy, particularly if you've got someone who's got a locked-in settlement date, a purchase or something like that. We can't afford to have those delays happen. Those of you who have been around a while understand the problems that can create. You get a very stressed out client. Whether it's the lender's fault or not, you're the one who's going to wear the blame. You're the one who wrote the loan for the client. You're the one who's presented it to the lender. So everything we can do to make sure that settlements aren't delayed through the things that you can control are certainly things which you need to be able to try and manage with every file you put in. So if there are delays, obviously this creates all kinds of stresses. You know, there's a stress on your BDM because you'll probably be on their back a little bit, asking them to try and accelerate the deal. That creates stresses with the lender relationship as well because they're kicking their credit team to try and get it moving along quickly. Also, it means that your name can soon turn to mud within the credit department of a lender if you're putting in files that aren't going all that well or aren't presented in the most professional manner. It's human nature. They'll take your file and roll their eyes a little bit and go, I know Glenn's stuff and it's rubbish, well, I'll deal with that a little bit later. This other stuff from other brokers I know that are really great, I'll work on theirs first. So certainly back as a broker myself, I had this taught to me very early on in my career. And so one of the things I tried to make sure is the things I've already spoken about. Collect all the paperwork, make sure that the application is really well presented. What tends to happen is then once you've earned that reputation within the lender, they will pick up your file first, knowing that it's always done well, it's always packaged well, it's always prepared well, and they'll look at it, and sometimes only, I can't say this always, but in some cases they might even just give it a cursory glance, check the bullet points, yep, this is the loan they're looking for, yep, it does fit, yes, the calculator works, yes, they can afford it, hey, that looks good to me, bang, done. And you'll have a really quick turnaround in some cases. Having said that, if it does turn south a little bit and it creates unnecessary delay, then obviously your customer is the one who really wears the brunt of this. They're the ones who are really disadvantaged. And they're the ones who are going to get angry with you. Even if it's not necessarily an issue that you've created, you're going to wear the blame. Believe me, the customers have no one else to blame. So they're going to come, and be a little angry with you. So, you want to have your customer relationship solid and built on trust and faith, and you want them to refer as many people as often as you can. So we want to make sure that our customer relationship, which is, one of my biggest bugbears, is spot on all the time. They're kept in the loop with everything. And the things that you say you're going to do, you deliver on time. And that'll keep them happy. Okay, so let's have a bit of a look at the bigger picture. Firstly, we want to getting it right the first time saves time, as I've already mentioned. Okay, so let's not harp on that too much, but one of the things that I guess you guys probably are aware of, or those of you who are listening to this for the first time or are relatively new to the industry, Now, I'm saying this tongue in cheek, so hopefully you'll take it this way. Most clients tend to expect an unconditional approval within 5 or 10 minutes of you driving away. I'm sure some of you have had that phone call, the morning after, the night before, after you've left their home at 9 o'clock at night and you've lodged it, or you probably haven't even lodged it yet, first thing in the morning, and the phone call comes. So, hi Glenn, it's Sarah Smith here. Hey, how's that loan going? Guys, I had hundreds of those, and you're going to see them. And no matter what you do, no matter what you say, that phone call is going to come. But if you do get the documentation right the first time, then you can manage their expectations perhaps a little bit better, and you can bring them back into a reasonable time frame and remind them that it does take a little while for this stuff to fall into place. Okay. Also, keeping the lender happy. Now, you may argue we don't have to keep the lender happy. Well, that's absolute rubbish. We need to make sure that we have a good relationship as brokers with our lenders. One, because we want to make sure that the loans we go through quickly. Two, sometimes, we might get treated a little bit more special because we've got great relationships with our BDMs and our lending panel. So perhaps most importantly, considering what we're talking about today, if the lender's happy with your work and they know your work, it allows a fully completed file really to move through without delay. Primarily, this will build a great reputation for you as a broker within the lending assessment team. So that also means maybe down the track you might get some priority over other people. And again, that will save you more time. Plus, we want to keep our customers happy, of course. We don't want to be chasing our customers after lodgement for extra documentation. This can and does affect your own credibility with the customer. If you're always going back asking for, one extra payslip and one extra group certificate and I've got your driver's license, but now I need your passport, or things like that. All of a sudden, the customer goes, "Hey, does this guy really know what he's doing? We're not really sure about this. Is he really a professional?" Whereas if you collect all that up front, and you're able to collect it all up front, you don't have to ask for anything else. Now, there will be times when the bank might ask for something that's completely off the planet, okay? That's not in their policy, that's not in any document. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. Well, the customer can wear that. You can go back to the customer and say, "Hey, listen, I know this is really weird. I don't know why they're asking for this, but I need whatever it might be." Now, that the customer can wear, and they'll understand that. But if you're going back again and again and again, then the customer will lose faith in your capability. And ultimately then, even though they might allow this transaction to fall into place, they're very unlikely to come back to you later or refer anyone else your way. And something we haven't really chatted about yet, it will also keep your referral partners happy. So let's say your customer's been referred by, your local real estate agent. They need to be kept in the loop as well. And they need to know the timeframes as well, because the customer will also go back and complain to the referral partner if you're not doing your job well. Or if that's their perception that you're not doing your job well, they will come back to the referral partner. Now, ultimately, then the referral partner hears this, they're going to go, "Oh, really? Should we still be using this guy or not?" So you might also potentially lose that referral partner. So we want to, there's a lot of stakeholders in this. There's yourselves, there's the customer, there's the lender, there's the referral partner. And anyone else that's involved. There might be a conveyancer involved and other real estate agents involved and other solicitors maybe for the other side involved of the house you might be buying. It's advisable to keep them all in the loop and not create unnecessary delay for any of them. So that falls squarely on our shoulders as brokers, just to make sure that if you are, again, putting the file together correctly the first time, then you are in a very powerful position as we move forward. All right, so let's talk about handling the customer a little bit. This is really where it all starts, the customer interview. If you can handle the interview correctly, then the paperwork requirement, will absolutely come up. They'll say, "What do we need? What do you need from us?" Etc. And even if they don't ask, which invariably they tend to, you need to have either a document or at least be able to walk through the conversation with them and say, "Okay, I need, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, all of that." And guys, I really need all of that. And this is the funny part. is that you need to make sure that you collect the paperwork and you collect exactly what's required, okay? And you have to let the clients know that that's very important. So don't be scared to ask exactly for what's required, and that you're not able actually to lodge an application without everything. Now, some of you might feel that's a bit scary to cover because you're mortgage professionals. Please believe that and please behave that way. You are absolutely mortgage professionals. To some people, you're a finance guru. So you need to collect everything you need to collect, and there's no correspondence will be entered into, no discussion. Guys, I'm happy to take everything you can give me tonight, and give me more over the next 24 hours. That's fine, but I will not be lodging this deal until I've got everything I need. And explain to them why. Talk to them about delays. Talk to them about your reputation. Talk to them about how they will be affected in a negative way if you were to lodge a file half-baked. Once you've explained that to them, then they're generally pretty cool. Now, the only thing I'll say here on that is this is also a great way to test the validity of the customer. So if you've got a customer in front of you who you think is not quite fair dinkum, or they're just testing you, then this is the point to where you're sorting out the men from the boys, so to speak. If they're not keen to provide you with everything you're looking for, typically they might be hiding something. Now, it doesn't mean it's sinister. It just means that they might be a little fearful of that extra credit card debt, or just something that they thought maybe they can get away with. It's not always them sort of going negative. It's just maybe they're scared of offering that extra little bit of information. And I've come across that. Steph, I'm sure you've seen that too. So if that does happen, then something along the lines, a nice gentle comment, something along the lines of, hey guys, listen, I'm working for you here, and I need to know everything. Now, tell me everything, and then I'll decide what the bank needs to know. And once you've thrown that comment out there, quite often you might see their tension levels drop, and you'll see the weight on their shoulders just slip away. And they'll go, oh yeah, well, we do have this extra credit card bill, or we have got a late notice sitting here because we haven't paid our bill on time. No defaults, no judgments, but they're scared to death of just a late notice. So if they can share everything with you, you can then go, okay, hang on, that is something we need to discuss, and that's pretty heavy duty. Or you can go, no, that's nothing, don't worry about it. Or, hey, just give me everything, let me sort through it. I'll ask you the questions as I need to. But guys, I can't help you without knowing the whole picture. Now, if you can be as non-judgmental and supportive as possible, 99.9% of your customers will come around, and they'll be more than willing to share it with you. So I think that's really important. If you have a customer who can't or won't share what needs to be shared with you, this is not a directive from anybody in particular, but from my point of view, they're not fair income. Thank them for their time and get the hell out of there. Why you're there, I don't know. But if they're hiding something that they're completely unwilling and you can see it, then say, hey guys, listen, again, I'm here to help you. I need to know everything. Clearly there's some stuff here that you're not willing to share with me. So realistically, I'm not willing to help you because you're not willing to help yourselves. Now, don't be afraid to do that. Sometimes you'll get a phone call the next day, and it could even be, I've seen this before, and Steph, I know that you've seen this one, the husband's hiding the credit card from the wife or vice versa. And it might be, and I had this happen quite a few times, where the husband sometimes would ring me in the morning and go, listen, I'm really sorry about last night. No, we're not really hiding anything, but I've got a credit card that the wife doesn't know about. And seriously, Glenn, if she finds out about it, we're done and dusted. We'll be divorced because you can see we're in a tough financial position already. Okay, so you handle that gently. That's fine. You can bring them back on board. Terrific. But if not, and if there are people who are just unwilling to give you what you want, then get out. Don't waste any time on any more and more people like that. You'll have lots of other customers to deal with who are willing to give you what they need. Okay?
Yep.
All right.
And Glenn, one more thing on paperwork. I'm a real fan of collecting more than what you need.
Yeah.
Like there'll be certain deals where you don't need the customer's day-to-day transaction account. However, I've always wanted to collect those
Yep.
because for me, it's the best way of having a conversation and assessing the living expenses.
Yep.
Now, for those people listening, you're probably already aware that the lenders now, it's on their radar. If brokers are quoting living expenses that are exactly hem or lower,
Yeah.
there's a report that's going to the aggregators. We've seen a few of these where they're saying to the broker, you need to come back and justify exactly how you came to this amount.
Yeah.
Now, that's really important from a compliance point of view, that you've thoroughly investigated and recorded the customer's living expenses.
Absolutely.
Because if that gets escalated and if you've just taken it on word from the customer that their living expenses are X amount,
Yep.
and if that's not correct, and down the track, if there's an issue or a hardship problem, your PI cover will be void.
Yep. So don't put yourselves at risk with that.
Correct.
Make sure you ask those questions correctly and collect the info that will help back that up.
Yep.
All right, so talking more about stuff like this, explaining turnaround times. Now, I would hope that you'd all have a good idea of what every lender's turnaround time, well, the lenders that you most usually use turnaround times are as we speak. So please be aware of that. It's very important to have an understanding of the current lending turnaround times. Just because you got a 2-day turnaround time last week, last month from ABC, doesn't necessarily mean that's the case all the time, and it doesn't necessarily mean that's the case right now with this loan that you're about to lodge. So if you know that, you can say to the client, hey, listen, right now turnaround times are, actually before I go down that road, I'm a massive fan of under promise and over deliver. So with turnaround times, this is something that can come back and bite you a little bit with your customers. So the best thing I can suggest is to overblow the turnaround times a little bit. So not ridiculously, but if you know that at the moment ABC has a 4-day turnaround time, and you've lodged the file properly with all the documentation in there, so there's no reason it should take any longer, then tell your clients it'll take a week. Don't be afraid to do this. Even if they look at themselves and go, oh boy, that's a long time, it puts you in a very strong bargaining place. Now, what I mean by that is that you can say to them, hey, listen, it is currently 7 days. I'll do everything I can to try and get it done more quickly. I'll pull in a couple of favours for you if I need to, but please, I just want you to be aware it's going to take 7 days. So let's say day 4, loan approval comes along. You ring them, it's day 4. Hey, congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. We've got your loan unconditionally approved. They'll go, oh, wow, already? Oh, you are fantastic. Thanks very much for that. And they love you. They dead set love you. However, if you flip that the other way and you say, okay, guys, listen, it's going to take 4 days. Let's say it takes to 5 days. On day 5, when you ring them, if they haven't already rung you on day 5, they're going to be a little, oh, really? Oh, geez, it took a long time. So all of a sudden they have a slightly negative spin towards your capability of doing your job and the lender. So please, if you can, under promise and over deliver when it comes to explaining turnaround times. I think that's very, very important. Okay, so as we move forward through the application, what happens next? So we need to explain to our clients, again, what's going on now. So I personally believe this is a really, really important step. If you can inform them as to what you're doing next, such as, lodgement, talking to the conveyancers, talking to the solicitors, talking to the real estate agents, you're going to do all that for them and you're going to make sure it all runs as smoothly as you can. And you can also walk them through the actual lending process, assessment, getting evaluation done, how long that takes, et cetera, then this will help keep their expectations at a realistic level. And hopefully then they'll understand it takes time, there's a lot of work involved, and they won't be chasing you every 30 seconds. Okay, I think it's really good for you to do that. And I think most importantly too, it'll actually build your relationship with the customers as well. You're giving them information that even they don't know how to ask or don't know what to ask. So you're educating them a little bit as to the process. And everyone I've ever met has always wanted to know what goes on behind the scenes. So tell them, don't give them, it doesn't have to be detail, but hey, this is what's going on next, guys. This is how long that takes. That'll be followed by this, and that'll be followed by the valuation, and then the valuation comes back, and then it goes to final approval. If you can walk them through that, then they have a better understanding that they're using a broker for a reason, and I think this is quite important. They're using you for a reason because you're handling it all the way through, and you're educating them, and you're helping them get this thing done. If you walked into a bank branch, I seriously doubt, and I hope no one's here from a bank branch, I seriously doubt that a branch manager, as good as they can be, will walk them through this whole process in detail. Some may, so I don't want to be unfair, but for you as the broker, you want to separate yourself from everyone else. Doing this really is a magnificent way to really cement your relationship with them and to make sure that they're happy along the way. So just as a final note, handling them correctly is really about showing them what goes through, helping them get it through quickly, and settling at the expected time frame. If you can manage that, they'll be happy. It gives you then the right to go and ask for business from them later on. That's a whole other conversation for another day. But if you can handle all that well, you'll have happy clients on your hands. So moving forward, supporting docs. Now, before we talk about anything else, I would love for you guys in the Q&A box and some of you who may have seen this before know the answer, but that's okay. Can anyone tell me what they're looking at right now? I'd love for you to tell me what you think you're looking at. So please throw something in. I'll keep moving forward as you're doing that, but I'd love to see, have a good look at it. Tell me what you think it might be. Okay. So based on that, and based on what we're looking at, oh, come on, guys, I'm still waiting for someone to say something. Are we all sleeping out there? Okay. All right, I'll keep moving forward regardless. I'd love to see your thoughts, though.
Okay.
Pay slip. All right, thank you. You guys have seen this before. Thanks, Eric. That is a pay slip, and some of you might be going, no way. Well, can I tell you, this was a pay slip in a file that I had to review for one of my mentees. Now, it was someone who was brand new to the business, and we'd had conversations about having the documentation done clearly and everything. So I'm not here bagging that broker, but I was presented this and I've just gone, oh my God, if I was the assessor, I can't read that. So please, how is the best way for us to collect our supporting docs? I think that's a great question. Now, if you're in front of the client and they hand you these things, great. If they're going to, in this day and age, it'll all be done via email primarily or any other form. Now, there's no set rules with this, okay? But if you can avoid taking photographs of documents and scan them into a computer instead, it allows them to be transferred more clearly. Now, the reason why this is obviously very important is that if you're looking at it and it's not completely clear to you, how, for the love of money, can someone in an assessment, sitting at their desk in ANZ or Westpac or whatever, read it? It needs to be really clear for these guys. Remember, you're fortunate. You've sat with the client, you understand their position, you understand their income, you've gone through that. The assessor doesn't know. They don't know these people from Adam. So you've got to make sure your files are very, very clear. And all the documentation is extremely clear. If it's not completely clear to you, it's not clear enough. Okay, so please, without sounding like I'm being really hard on that, I can't highlight the importance of having the documentation really, really spot on all the time, because if the assessor can't read it, can't understand it, they can't assess it, and I promise you they'll just throw the file back at you after they might have sat on it for a couple of days. One last thing, when you are working on the file, you really need to make sure that any points you're trying to make are very clear as well. So this includes a very detailed overview of the clients in your file notes, right? In your initial notes to the client, to the lender. Details about the clients. Always put it in a positive spin. Remember, you're selling the clients to the lender. So you talk about, who they are, what they are, where they are, their life situation, their work situation, their residential history, why they're applying for what they're applying for. Then also, very importantly, which actual loan product and at what rate, what indicative rate, and also the timelines included. You may think that that's all shown in the application, and that's true. But a lot of lending assessors will read the file notes first, and then they'll double check against what you've got in the file. And if it doesn't make sense either way, they'll put the file back at you. So you need to make sure that you're very clear with that. You don't have to write, War and Peace. It's no need for a 20-page document. But just cover all the relevant points in a very positive way. And that's really all I can ask for there, and it'll help you a great deal.
So as well with this, Glenn, that the assessor can't verify the income to your serviceability. Obviously, that's one issue.
Yep.
But the second part of it is that if you as the broker receive this via email, you don't actually know if this is a real payslip.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Right. So it's putting you at risk.
Yep.
Not only can the assessor not assess it, it's putting you at risk because you can't verify if this is real.
Great point. So let's just talk about that just briefly. Again, from a compliance point of view, it falls on your heads now that to be looking for any particularly fraudulent activity. Now, payslips and saving statements are the two most common things that can go wrong. So if nothing else, check the math. Make sure that if the year-to-date figure, that it balances. There are things to look for. As an example, it might be on a week-by-week basis. Are the figures always rounded up or down? Well, that's actually a bit of a giveaway. Look for anything that's the wrong colour. Look for anything that's just anything that you think stands out. Bring it to either the lender's attention or even perhaps don't go back to the client about it because they may have been the one who created the fraud in the first place. Again, you can't assume that. So that's a whole other conversation again for another day. But please just have a good look at the documents. Make sure that they look right to you. Spend that extra few minutes that I said early on just checking this stuff before you put it in. Because once it goes in, then the blame, if there's going to be any blame down the track, falls on you. Okay? So let's try and avoid that. So if you can do that, make sure everything's nice and clear and you're off and running. You'll be good to go from there.
Absolutely. I've got on my iPad, Glenn, so, most of my files are now digital.
Yep.
So on my iPad now, I've got a scanning app. So I just go over the document, in this case, a payslip or, tax return or any of that. The app actually zeroes into the borders of the page. Right, we can see the one here on the screen is a photograph,
yeah.
But the app actually scans it, it zeroes into the corners, and it just automatically saves it. You put it in a folder. So if you're doing face-to-face meetings and you're not taking supporting documents with you, and you've got something like an iPad, it's a great way to scan on the spot.
You are just a tech queen, aren't you?
No,
that's
really.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to move forward and let's have a look at some of the most common mistakes that take place. Some of these you'll think are pretty ludicrous, but they're really common, and that's why they're here. So incorrect name spelling. This is probably the number one. For God's sake, please just check how you spell it. Check it against the documents you've got, be it a driver's license and or passport and or birth certificate or marriage certificate, the whole 9 yards. Just spell the name right and spell it consistently against that document. It's the number one thing the lenders look for, the number one, because they can't then confirm that the applicant is who they say they are, even with a minimal, incorrect spelling of the name. So, please make sure you do that right.
And we've got these days in the communities we live in, Glenn.
Yep.
We've got so many aliases.
Yeah.
So we've got some very lengthy names.
Yep.
From people's home countries.
Yep.
They come here, they adjust them,
Yeah.
or they flip the order of their first name to middle name,
Yep.
or they shorten it to make it easier to pronounce.
That's right.
And sometimes their ID documents don't all line up.
That's right.
So we've got to spend a bit of extra time checking.
Yeah. So if you have that happen, just get as much justification as you can. I know it's quite common within the Indian community and the Sri Lankan community that they might Anglo-Saxonise their first name, just to make, because they know it just makes it easier for the people around them.
Yeah.
If they don't have enough ID justifying that, then it'll come back and it'll get bounced back at you. So just, even if you have to write notes or get another form of ID or a stat dec or something, but anyway, just simply incorrect spelling of the name is a bit of a killer, okay? Next one is not dating the application. This one happens a lot, particularly if it's a bit late at night and you're in there and you're filling out the application and you're there just to get the signatures, and you let them know, just for the sake of time, I'll fill out the dates a bit later, and you forget. Now, the bank will throw it back at you and that'll create more delay. So just again, just take that extra couple of minutes just to make sure the file's fully complete, and you'll be good to go. The incorrect completion of the file. Now, we talked about this a little bit earlier, about the boxes not being ticked or sections not being fully completed or even parts being left out altogether. Probably the biggest issue here is it can lead to the wrong product being selected, and the client ultimately may be even getting the wrong loan. Now, I'll give you an example of one that I've seen recently, actually, where it was a split loan, part fixed, part variable, 50-50, so it was pretty simple. It ended up being approved, documented, and then settled as a straight variable loan. So just think about that for a minute. It seems a bit ludicrous, but a couple of things went wrong there. Firstly, the application wasn't filled in correctly, and when I had a look at the application, you could see that they'd filled out everything but just didn't tick the right boxes. So it's a pretty simple little thing that went wrong. Then when the mortgage docs went out, of course, the bank only approved it as a variable rate loan because that's all they could see. Then the mortgage docs went out and it was a straight variable rate loan on the whole lot. And when the mortgage docs were completed with the broker and the customer in this stage, no one really looked at it all that thoroughly. So, there was, again, a lack of attention to detail. It all moved through to settlement. Everything was happy. Broker was happy. That was no problem. And then all of a sudden, the first month came around and there was only one payment went out. And then the client came back to the broker with a please explain. They had to do some fast talking. They had to redocument the loan. It cost the broker ultimately, I think it was $350 to redocument the loan, plus quite a bit of waste of time and a fair amount of angst was created as far as the customer was concerned. So again, guys, just take a minute, just spend that extra minute, just make sure everything's done. Next one is the old signatures have been missed. Again, same deal. You may have filled out every page. Let's say it's a couple, and let's say you've handed them all to the one partner, and they filled it out correctly, and the second partner's just missed one signature in one spot. That's enough. That'll kill the deal off, and that'll create delay. They'll come back to you and say we need it signed. So again, just take your time. Make sure all the signatures are in the right places. And that includes mortgage docs later on too. That's probably even more important. Now, the old tax file number. Most of you hopefully are fully aware of the fact that they are jumping, and they've been jumping on this for years, but they're really, really jumping on this now. So it's got to be deleted. There is no discussion, nothing about that. But let's talk a little bit just about how to do it best. Now, you may think this is silly. I'll just run over it with my texter. Sometimes, and again, this may sound odd, but if for those of you who tried this, you'll know that this is true, is quite often the black that is being used on, say, the PAYG certificate at the end of the year seems to be blacker than a black pen you can find. So even when you black it out, if you were then to put the file in and scan it in that way, quite often the tax file number can still be seen. Some people know about redaction. Redaction is basically a software program you can use to actually delete the tax file number. But what I've found just over time, Steph, I hope you might agree with this, is that if you just get one of those white strip pen things, like a whiteout pen, that works really, really well. Then you may copy it one more time, or you can scan it from there, and the tax file number won't be seen. So that's just a really great way to do it. But please look for the tax file numbers. Now, if you're going through, just one other little tip here, if you're going through a full set of accountant's documents, the tax file number is not shown once. It's shown on each page. So please look for that. Okay, if you're going to be putting in a whole tax return that's provided by the accountant, make sure you white out or redact or do something to delete all the tax file numbers that are in that document. So look on each page. It's all fine getting the first one on the first page done and thinking your job is done. It's not, because it still goes in with tax file numbers. So please just keep an eye out for that as well. All right, so let's have a look at the next one. Number 6 is the collection of savings and mortgage statements. Probably the most common issue here would be the timing of the statements. Now, I'll just use some dates that I've written a little earlier. Let's just say that it's May 14, okay, 14th of May, and you're doing a new loan for these clients. Now, just asking for the last 6 months statements, which is what we tend to all ask for, that in their minds translates to the last 6 months statements they've actually received. Now, most of you probably know most statements run from the 1st of Jan to the to the end of June, and then the 1st of July to the end of December, mostly. So then the last statement they may have received might have been the 1st of January. So in this case, 5 months ago. You need to be aware of that, and you need to explain to them, no, I need stuff from today back 6 months. Now, you can get more, that's cool. If they've got some original statements from a period earlier, that's fine. And if it means you have to go online and print up current statements right up to today's date, that's fine too. We can talk about mortgage statements and how to handle them from electronically versus an original at another time. But as long as you get the statements and they're dated up to today or within the last month is generally the rule that the lenders ask for. So I was always one to say, hey, listen, I'd like one as of today. That allows for any delays or something that might come up later on. So if you can do that, that really helps a lot. Now, the order of the documents in the file. Now, some of you may believe that because we're in very much an electronic forum these days, that I can just put them all together in whatever order I want and send them to the bank and they'll sort them out. That's true, but it creates delay. So remember, we're all about trying to make things easier for the customer and building your reputation also within the bank, and to allow for settlements and approvals to happen in the most timely manner. So the only thing I can ask you to consider is, if your packaging the file is to put everything together in an order that the lender can work with. Don't just throw it all together in sort of a hodgepodge and expect that they'll straighten it up for you. So just an example. Now, this is not set in stone, but it's just an example. First page, cover page including any file notes. Okay, easy enough. The application itself, then the lending assessment calculator, followed by the pay slips and group certificates or whatever. After that, savings or mortgage docs if you're refinancing. Rates notice if you're refinancing. Contract of sale if you're buying. Evaluation if you've gotten one. And any other ancillary docs from there. Every lender, as you probably all know, has its own document list that it needs. If you follow that, that's cool too. But I think if you try to make it even better, if you can follow that kind of a list in that sort of an order, that'll just help things go through again in the right manner. Next one. The numbers just don't add up. Why? Okay. So are the savings, as an example, you're told verbally, matching with the savings statements? If they are, great. If they're not, why not? Got to ask those questions, okay? It's what they can prove now at the time of application, okay? It's not yet we're saving right now and in 6 months we'll have $20,000. You're applying today. We need to know where you're at right now. That's how the lenders look at it. What is their position at the time of application? Not what's going on in the future, all of that kind of thing. So please make sure that you do that. Can they afford to do what they want right now? And use their own, the lender's own calculator on that. Do they have enough money to make the deal happen, including the stamp duties and all of those sorts of things? Do they have enough to reach settlement if settlement was going to happen today? And that's what the lender's looking for. And also, on top of that too, the other thing is the LVR. Does that stack up? Is it within the lender's guidelines? As you guys know, LVR sort of moves around a little bit from lender to lender with what they can allow you to do. Be aware of that. Have a look and see what's going on right now with the lender you're talking about. Just because, just because someone might have offered 95 plus LMI 6 months ago doesn't mean they're doing it today. They might be back at 90 right now. So you just need to make sure the numbers for everything within the file add up, stack up, and settlement can be met right now if it had to be. If you can do that, that'll help. Next thing, cover story. The cover story itself, and I know I mentioned this a little bit earlier, is an extremely important component of how to put a loan together in the best way. Take the time, please. Take just that little bit extra time to write this properly. You can use bullet points, all of that. That's not a problem. And as I said, it doesn't have to be War and Peace, but it's got to be a very positive overview of their clients, their situation, their work and residential history, why they're doing what they're doing, their affordability, the loan that they want, any particular rate. So it might be we're looking at a break-free package with ANZ at 3.99, et cetera, et cetera. Put that in. Say that, even though you might think, oh, that's a waste of time. It's already in the documentation. Yes, but write it in anyway, because if there's ever any doubt, you can go back and say, hey, listen, did you read my file notes? Oh, no, we've the application shows this. Actually, no, it doesn't, because here's the file notes, and that's a representation of what I've given you. If you do that, it just backs up your case and keeps you at the forefront from a reputation point of view. And if there's ever any doubts or any questions, you can go back to that stuff. And I have seen loans that were ready to fall over that once they've read the file notes, that's gone the other way. So don't underestimate this stuff, okay? It's not one sentence. It's not nothing. Don't think it's just a series of numbers. We have to humanise this. Please, I get very enthusiastic about this, so I apologise in advance, but we're dealing with real people. We need to humanise the file, because the people in the assessment team just see it as a pack of numbers. They don't see that they're real people sitting in their home waiting for this to fall into place. You have to purvey that. So please do that in your cover story. I can't highlight that strongly enough.
And particularly, Glenn, we've seen some files where on very first glance, you might feel that, wow, that's a big default, or that's a big judgment. This file's not going anywhere.
Yep.
But once we delve deeper, we go, wow, there's actually a very, very good reason for this. And it looks like that default or judgment is going to be turned around.
Yep.
This is not the customer's fault.
Yep.
And so it needs a thorough explanation. The bank needs to see that you've done your research to uncover the background on this, and that needs to go in there.
Yeah, that's a great point. So if you've got anything outside of the ordinary that needs to be discussed, discuss it. Don't hide it. Particularly things like defaults and or judgments. You might think, oh, it's only a short little Telstra one.
Yep.
Very common. A gas one or a telco of some kind, $500. They moved home 3 years ago, whatever. That is really common. But it's never hidden. Someone's going to find out about it. And the thing is, if you don't cover it, then the lender has a reason to decline the deal. So cover it, and don't be afraid of it. Put it up and talk about it. Create the issues. As you said, there might be a great reason behind it. Put those reasons in. Again, we're humanising the file, so the assessor can go, oh, I see that. Yeah, my sister was in that same position 6 months ago. Great. Okay, yeah, everything else is great. Bang, we'll approve that. So that's a super point, Steph, super point. Okay, last one of our 10 most common mistakes, incorrect property address. Now, this may sound really strange, but it can go wrong, and it can create all kinds of delays if you don't use the right addresses. Okay, let me give you an example of that, if I may. A client of one of our brokers, they were buying a vacant block of land. Those of you who are anywhere near the western suburbs of Melbourne will understand there's a huge amount of stuff going on out there right now, particularly through the Rockbank area. Anyway, these guys are buying a block of land in Rockbank, and it was lot 1872. Remember those four numbers, 1872. The val got requested at lot 1892. So it was just a poor handwriting, basically, but it was requested a lot 1892. It took 4 days to get this thing changed, because they went out, there was no lot 1892. There was nothing on a plan of subdivision anywhere. They went back and forth with the broker a little bit. The broker double-checked everything, said, no, it's 1872. They had to change the application form. They had to change the valuation request. And the worst thing about this, that took 4 days. Even worse than that, it was a 7-day finance approval clause. I know that the broker who handled this, and I know them quite well, and they are very professional. This was just a slip-up. They had to get extensions on the finance. Now, any of you who might have had anything to do with dealing with vacant land before would understand that it's very, very difficult to get the land developers' solicitors to agree to any extensions. Anyway, in this case, this was done, and it got done, and it all fell into place nicely. But just that unfortunate delay created just by one wrong number. So again, I'll say it again, make sure you check it, make sure it's right, so then this kind of stuff doesn't happen anymore. Okay, so hopefully that's all clear. So I just want to finish my part of this and just cover a couple of things, a few thoughts. Okay, firstly, please don't rush the process. Okay, take your time, get it right the first time. If you did pick up an application that day, I know I said this earlier, if you picked up an application that day and intend to lodge it that night, that's cool, no problem with that. Get it ready to lodge, and either review it in the morning, fresh eyes, you've had a sleep, or if you're doing it sort of late afternoon, just wander off for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, go and have a coffee, get on the phone, talk to someone else, just walk away from the file just for a few minutes, come back, review it. If it's ready to go, then lodge it, not a problem. Be aware of your reputation. Guys, jealously guard your reputation, because at the end of the day, your reputation is all you have. You can be a fantastic broker, or you can be a great person and all the rest of that. Your reputation, certainly within the lending fraternity, is all you have, because when it goes into a loans assessment team, if they know who you are and they know that you do it well, you will get treated better than the broker who doesn't do it very well at all. So please, jealously guard that reputation, because it is awesome if you do it well. Don't take any shortcuts either, please. Okay, so it costs you time, it does cost you money, it can cost you relationships, it can cost you goodwill, and it certainly cost you any potential clients coming in the future if you are taking shortcuts, because you will get found out, because it'll just create all sorts of problems as you go. Next point, please maintain a professional and knowledgeable public persona. Remember, you are a mortgage professional. And sometimes it's hard to get this across to brokers, that we are professionals. Okay, I don't care what you did 6 months ago if you've just stepped into the mortgage world, or what you did 20 years ago. You are now, certainly from a public perspective, you are now a mortgage professional. So behave like it, carry yourself that way, have a knowledgeable base to work with if someone asks you a quickie question. Be proud of who you are, okay? And most importantly, if you do all of this, and if you do it all well, you will gain extra referrals from your referral partners, primarily because you're creating a stress-free and a seamless experience for your customers and anyone who's referring those customers to you. So if it all works nicely, you'll get more referrals from your referral partners, but perhaps most importantly, a lot of brokers I know have been building their businesses on off the back of almost one customer at a time. And what I mean by that is that they might work with Mr. and Mrs. Smith, who wasn't referred, they're just someone that they've came through a lead or saw your marketing and they gave you a call, but you blew them away with all this stuff. You did it all exactly how it's supposed to be. You expert, negotiation. You handled the client beautifully. The file went through beautifully and quickly and no problem. Well, somewhere down the track, you can go back to them and say, hey, listen, I know you're happy with my service. I really appreciate you letting me know that. Who else do you know who I can talk to? Now, there are a lot of brokers who don't have the guts, I guess, to ask that question. But if you do, and if you can build a little bit of strength there, that one client can bring you lots and lots and lots of people. But you have to earn it and you have to do it right. And what we're talking about today is just one method of making sure that you do this stuff correctly. I've been wanting to show you the big picture. So it's not just about making sure your file's good. It's how everyone else is affected, including yourself. So, from my point of view, thanks for listening. It looks like we've got a couple of questions that have popped through, but you're always welcome to contact me down the track. I know that there are some people here who are not necessarily MLB brokers. That's cool with me. If you've got questions or thoughts, you're more than welcome to contact me any way you like, okay?
Definitely. Thank you, Glenn. Some fantastic points there and really, really good reminders. There's Glenn's email address and telephone number if you'd like to reach out or if you'd like to be connected to one of our BDMs if you're not on board with us. But for those of you that have just got generally questions about loan submissions and quality, you can send those questions through or send us an email. You don't need to be on board with us. Glenn, one thing we are going to do very soon is do a recording, is do a webinar. Today we spoke about the importance of quality applications, and this is very much the external view, so how it's presented to the lender.
Yep.
I think what's really been highlighted recently for us is the internal housekeeping point of things. So specifically what I'm talking about is brokers keeping file notes. So however they do that, whether it's physical file notes, whether it's as a part of their software, like with us, we've got Base, our brokers can use Base, but whatever system you're using, it's becoming more and more important. We've seen some fairly major instances
Yep.
where the broker has been put at risk.
We have.
Where issues have escalated from the client's point of view, and the client in these instances had to be the one to be believed as to what transpired.
Have we got time to talk about that with these guys today?
Very briefly, I think we're right on. But yeah, if you want to spend a couple of minutes on that.
Guys, without sort of standing on a soapbox about this, Steph and I are going to be putting a recording together about this. But just briefly, one of the things that has popped up recently with one of our brokers is that there was a general lack of communication, unfortunately, between the broker and the customer. So I'm not going to go into detail here, but one of the things that we wanted to be able to do to help support our broker, because we did get quite a strong complaint come through from the customer, which, the person taking the loan. So we thought, okay, the best thing we can do is we had a chat to the broker, and then we wanted to go through our software, which is called Base. Now, Base is a program that we use for our, amongst other things, there's lots to it, but taking notes and looking at your everyday discussions with your clients and or the stakeholders to the file. So we went through that, and we found, unfortunately, with this broker, there was very little of anything in the way of a story that we can help support her with. So this particular broker we're still talking to about trying to get all that sorted out, but potentially, if this was to drag on and get much more serious, this could be something that might even affect her career. So we are going to talk a little bit more about the file notes, but what I'd like to say, if I may right now, and then we'll finish off, is that the file notes we spoke about earlier in this webinar was more about what the bank needs to see. The file notes I'm talking about now are the file notes that you really must be making from a compliance point of view, from an auditing point of view, of your day-to-day discussions, movements, thoughts, activities and actions that you take regarding this customer and their file. Now those notes, you can do them in something like a base, you can do them in I know Microsoft has something, or you can just use a straight old-fashioned spreadsheet. But every time you talk to the client, every time you talk to one of the stakeholders, every time you do something, put a note in. Might only be just, today I rang Bob Smith and let him know about the valuation coming back. Great. If you can get into a habit, and I can sense some of you rolling your eyes as we speak, hopefully not, but I can understand if you are. It sounds like a lot of extra work. But please, and I'm saying this sincerely, please, if you haven't gotten yourself into a file note program of some description yet, or you haven't made it part of your business, please do it. Because if anything ever goes wrong, that's really all you've got to cover yourself with. If it ever gets in front of, if it goes through, your PI cover, and you're ever standing in front of a Supreme Court judge to assess what's going on here, and it's gotten that serious, your file notes might be the only thing that will save you. Okay, so please just consider that. But Steph and I will put something together over the next little bit, and we'll have that available as a recording, and we'll talk about that in much more detail. So. Thanks, Steph. I think it's a great point to bring up.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much, Glenn, for that. That's been fantastic. There will be a recording of today's session on the My Local Aggregation website, which is available to all of you in the next couple of days. And in a fortnight's time will be the last series of webinars for this week. So we'll be doing one, for this year. Sorry, thanks for that, Glenn. 5 weeks till Christmas.
Wow, Christmas. Oh my God, I hope you're all ready.
So we will have an external company, Reach Local, come in and talk to us about digital marketing. That's going to be fantastic. That's in a fortnight today, as well as the two chief ones. And we're getting our program ready for next year. So if there's any particular topics that you would like us to cover, feel free to drop us a line and let us know.
Yeah, because we're always fishing for things to try and help you guys out with. And, Steph and I have built a number of things already, but we'd like to be able to do more for you. So if you do have any thoughts on that, you're more than welcome to let us know.
Excellent. Fantastic. So thank you to all of you for joining us today. And we trust that that's been valuable. And we'll see you again soon on a webinar. And for those of you that are in Melbourne, we'll see your faces on Thursday at our PD day. So thank you very much. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Steph.
Bye-bye.